Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Into the Dungeonverse from New Minds Enrichment. I am, again, your host and guide, Adam, Mr. Adam. I'll be here with you today. Although I do have some guests with me, you can see that Gorby is still hanging out in his little hut. We'll see what happens to him. Well, not hut, cage. But as Mr. Ben challenged us yesterday, you have already met him kind of improvised, and he has some of my materials. I would like to introduce my young son. His name is Malcolm Calder, and he is taking the bait for our next person. He's going to eat the bait right now. Malcolm, can you say, hi, people? Malcolm, like I said, he's 2. My wife and I had him, obviously, 2 years ago. He is a great kid. He's learning a lot. His imagination is coming in full blown. Malcolm, can you show everyone... What's a peacock sound? What's a peacock say? What's a monster peacock say? So Malcolm loves monsters and skeletons, or as he calls them, dimbones. He's got a lot of imagination going. Dimbone. What? And he's a monster peacock again. So this is Malcolm. You will probably hear him or his songs in the background sometimes. Malcolm, what are you holding? Oh, it's a snowman. He put the 2 D20s together. Hello. He put the 2 D20s together and then now they're a snowman. It is so awesome to see that storytelling and imagination starts when you're this little even, because he has some awesome stories that he tells with his toys. Sometimes he's Woody from Toy Story, but we love this little guy a lot. Miss Kaylee and I do. He is a pretty awesome kid. I know my Dungeonverse kids have gotten to meet him, and some other people have gotten to meet him too. And you see our next guest is coming in. He's creeping in looking for his scrappins. This was my first, you could call it first child. as Ben got really sappy with his dogs. I talk about my child very calmly, and now I'm going to talk about my dog in a completely different way. He's a little skittish, as you saw him just like jump by, and there's a little bit of a story to that. Charlie, can you come here? I got some food for you. Come here. Come on. Come over here. We want to. You come here. It's good that you all are meeting him online, because anyone who's met him in person, he's a bit of a case. You have to kind of sit down and give him a lot of space, because when we got Charlie, here you go, Charlie. When we got Charlie, here, I'm going to tilt the camera down a little bit so you can see him. Charlie. He really just wants this food, so I'm going to give him the food right now. Charlie, come here. Oh, very good boy. Can you look over here? Sit. Okay, good job. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna pick him up and pull him up here with me, and he's gonna be kind of weirded out by that, but it's gonna be okay. He's fine. Charlie was a rescue. Someone had abused him, and he was very scared of people, especially men. And in college, my sophomore year, I got a chance to adopt a dog. I really wanted one. I was away from home. I missed my family, and I really wanted a doggo again. And so I found this beautiful dog online. His name was Charlie. And I went and I was like, I'm here to look at Charlie. And they're like, oh, no, he's terrified of men. There's no way. And I was like, can I try to work with him? See if that'll work. And it took us 2 months, me and my roommates at the time, who were also all men. So it was really hard. We had to work with him. The first time I met him, I had to like sit outside of his cage, turned around, for him to be okay with me. But he's totally worth it. Anyone who's had a rescue pet before, you know that like the love that and effort that you pour in is it's much smaller than the love that you get back from them. So okay, now speaking of love, I'm going to pull Charlie up here, and he's gonna look really weirded out. But I promise. Oh, you're okay. You're okay, love. All right, no, if it's hurting you, I don't want you to hop up here. Okay, you're gonna hop up here. All right. So this is Charlie. He's kind of a big boy. We don't know what he is either, kind of like Mr. Justin was. We think he might be an Australian Shepherd mix. We're not sure. He could be a Kelpie. It's a particular breed. He's very graceful and agile, but since Malcolm has been born, he's gained some what they call high chair weight. Oh, that's a good picture. Thanks, buddy. But he is such a good boy. He helped me through some really hard times in college. But he is really weirded out by what we're doing, so I'm gonna let him go. Malcolm is also playing, and that kind of makes him a little sketchier with things. All right, Malcolm, you want to come say bye? You want to come say bye to the people? Come on in. Oh, you're no, you're just stealing my dice. He just tried to steal my dice and run away.
My dice.
Say bye-bye, Mal.
Bye-bye now.
Classic Malcolm. Classic Malcolm.
Oh.
Okay, and then we do have one more member of our fur family. This guy's been around for quite some time. Actually, I think I would have been in 6th grade. So if any of you are in 6th grade, imagine being a full-grown adult with your own kid and still having your cat. He's the only cat I've ever met that will let you cradle him like this. And so he will let you hold him like a baby. This is, in fact, how he prefers to be held. So I got some practice holding a baby way before I had my baby. This is Wookie. Wookie is kind of contrary in his old age. So how old is he now, Miss Kaylee?
Like 16.
Ow. he prefers my wife. He prefers Miss Kaylee. We were buddies way back when, and now he's an old man and I'm an old man, and so we kind of grumble at each other. But that is our fur family and my family. Miss Kaylee will probably hop on tomorrow at some point when we are going to be making a very cool craft. So at this point, I'll recover my dice. We're going to use these here in just a second. I assume this is Hanson again. I'm glad that you like our cat. Wookie is a special thing, and it's really funny to hear your 2-year-old go, Wookie, Wookie, where are you? And I'm sure my neighbors are just like, what? Why do these people love Star Wars that much? And it's just, that's what a 6th grader names their cat. Wookie, why not? It's a perfect name for a cat. So, let me give you the table of contents for today, or what we're going to be doing. We are starting off with our Gorby the Goblin story, revisiting that and seeing what our successful action was. We are also going to be taking a look at a different map making program. It's a pretty cool one. It's online. It's digital. So if anyone wants to make a digital map, maybe drawing's not really your thing, you'll want to stay tuned for that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we're either going to take a look at your map for your own story, or we're going to take a look at the map that we made together, which I did see someone had commented monkeys a bunch of times, and it didn't show up for me until afterwards. So we are going to add some monkeys to this map because you really wanted monkeys on there. We're going to put them on there. So I do want to go ahead and take that moment to give a quick little disclaimer that I do watch the chat very carefully as we're on here, and I try to respond to you as soon as I see your comments. But due to the streaming and the way this works, sometimes I don't see the comments all together, or I won't see them at all until the end. I'm still checking to make sure that I'm all good. I won't see the comments until the end, so do know that I am trying to keep an eye on the comments. I actually have a computer open over here, so if you see me look over there, I'm looking at comments there as well. So I am trying to stay tuned to you all. So after we take a look at the map making program, which will just be a minute, we'll start creating our own story. I'm actually going to pull up a document here. We're going to write together a little bit. We're going to turn off the editor. We're going to jam, create some stuff. And then, of course, as always, we'll end with story time. I do have a couple of polls. I'm not sure when they'll show up, but I put them in there. So go make sure to chime in on what story I should read next for story time. And also, there's a little kind of trivia question in there that wasn't solved yesterday. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin into the Dungeonverse in full swing, starting with Mr. Gorby's story. Remember that yesterday, Mr. Gorby, he was traveling along on his way through the kingdom of Flomo, attempting to visit his friend Roog the Rogue. But as he was traveling, he was swept up on by an evil troll. And this troll took him back to his lair, where he had disassembled a castle, and he stacked some walls up, and he trapped our good friend Gorby, who had only chicken bones, a piece of paper, and a small crystal that he found inside his cell. He sat there for some time pondering what he should do, looking at this fascinating crystal when advice began to come in. Hi, Ben. Hey, Janet. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Some advice started to come in through this crystal, and he's going to take some of it today. The two pieces of advice that I saw were for him to use the crystal to smash through the wall and to chisel out. Okay, so he's going to try that. The next one I saw come through was chicken bones, using those as a weapon on the troll's head. Well, we'll see if that works. So I encourage you all to do your own role play at home with whatever you have. You don't have to have dice, you just have to have an imagination. Gorby waits for the troll to pass by. He often does, just walk by. So he has to wait and take those times to chisel through. Now we want to introduce a random element, an element of chance. So this is where our D20 comes in. If you have one of these, you can use them. But if you don't, you can use regular D6s like we did for our maps, or you can flip coins, or you can come up with a fun challenge for your sibling, your mom, your dad, whoever's playing with you to do. Maybe they have to stand on one foot with their arm extended and they have to balance a pencil, make sure it doesn't fall for 30 seconds. And that could be your challenge. But we use this. I do have some music up, so let me know if it gets too loud. I use this to determine a random element. So we're going to roll a d20. The higher the number is, the better. And we're going to see if Gorby is successful in chiseling through the wall. Now, since Gorby is pretty good at smashing things, he has an experience in that, a proficiency, we're going to give him a +7 modifier. What that means is we're going to add 7 to whatever our roll is, and we'll see if he's successful or not. So I'm going to go ahead and put my whiteboard on my lap here, and I'm going to pan the camera down for just a moment, and we're going to do a little roll. All right. What do you think it's going to be? Is anyone expecting a natural 20? That's the best. All right, so this is a 9. I said I was going to give Gorby a +7. So any quick mathematicians out there, 9 + 7, what number are we looking at? I'm going to go ahead and solve it for you. It's 16. So 16, that's a pretty good number. The DC or dice check that I had in mind for this was he had to get a 14 or higher, which means since he got a 16, he's good. Over time, Gorby chiseled his way through this wall, and he made a tiny little hole, enough for him to get out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these. Gorby looks back into the crystal, and he gives a thumbs up and says thank you in Goblin, which kind of comes out as like, it's a strange language. Alright, we're going to remove some sections of wall. He chiseled right through this one. I'll put this one back. But as he's getting through, he's chiseling through, the structural integrity of the cage, which wasn't very big to begin with, it starts to break and fall, and it makes a little crumbling noise. He can hear that the troll is on its way to investigate. So Gorby's going to try to look around for somewhere to hide. Let's see if he's able to hide in time. I rolled and he got an 11, which since he's so tiny, he got a +4 for this one. 15, he hides up against one of the stalagmites as the troll comes back out. And the troll is looking for him, and he comes up to the wreckage, and he says, "It's lost. It's lost. My goblin is lost." And he's upset. And this is when that other message comes in that says, "Use the chicken bones as a weapon." And Gorby is like, "This is a great idea. Chicken bones are one of the most hardest materials on the face of the planet, right?" So Gorby takes his chicken bones, one in each hand, and he runs up the wall, and he's going to try to attack this troll with the chicken bone. All right, as I always say in Dungeons and Dragons, when I'm a game master, you can try. You can always try. So he's going to try. Let's roll to see this d20. Let's see if he gets. He got a 14. This is just tiny as he is, and he's surprising him. That's a 17 at least. We'll have to give him a +3 or 4, so we'll call it 18. Man, that's actually going to be a high enough number to hurt this troll. He jumps up, and kind of like Ron in the Harry Potter, would have been the Sorcerer's Stone. Is it Ron or Harry who jumps up? One of them jumps and they end up sticking their wand in the troll's nose. This is exactly what happens, except the chicken bone goes in the troll's ear, and it roars in pain, and it falls in to the rubble, giving Gorby a chance to escape. But as he's about to leave, Gorby sees a small tunnel. And in that tunnel, there's a glimmer of gold and treasure. Gorby is going to have to choose whether he will leave and take this opportunity, or if he will investigate further and perhaps find some treasure. So I'll see if I can add that as a poll for us. I don't think I can add any polls once we've gotten started. But maybe someone behind the scenes. Oh, wait, no, I can. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the polls right now. Add question. Should Gorby... What should Gorby do? What should Gorby do? I don't have any answers to any of my other polls yet. I don't think. I also am just learning all of this. So, should he run away while he has the chance? Or investigate the treasure? So this is kind of like a choose your own adventure. Man, I don't even know if those exist anymore. This might be for the for the parents out there, but the choose your own adventure books, that's kind of what we're doing, except we're doing it live and on Facebook. All right, so I'm posting that poll. Go ahead. What should we do? Should Gorby run away while he has the chance, or investigate the treasure? And then next time on Gorby's segment, we'll find out what happened. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and publish now my other questions. Here we go. I'm figuring it out, guys. We're learning. So I'm going to open up after we give it a little bit of time. Here, we're going to open up for voting after the live video as well. I'm going to hold up the troll one more time. So one of my poll questions is, what movie is this from? Give you a close look at him, his face, his hands, his warty legs. Very gross guy here. But he is from a movie that I think a lot of you do know. Okay, so I'm going to hop out of the polls, and we are going to move on to our next activity, which is where I'm going to sample a map making program for you called Incarnate. You can make a free account with them. You just need an email, so you might ask your parents for assistance on that. They'll be able to help you out. But that is going to it's going to allow you to create a lot of really interesting and neat things. All right. Last chance trying to open this up. Okay. So coming back in here to our chat. Hi Shayna, good to see you. Hope your little one is out there. We miss seeing him. Okay. So now I will move over here. I'm going to remove this image that was our background for our story. We're going to hop into this program that I'm telling you about, Incarnate. So I'll just do a quick little sampler of this. We've all been making our maps at home. Excuse me, love. Your part of the show is actually, we were just doing that at the beginning. Did you want to come in for a second time? Okay, one more time. You can say hi to everyone. Good morning. It's actually 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's okay. Say good afternoon. All right, say bye-bye. You can take the dice with you now. All right? Bye, love. You have a good time, okay? All right. So this program Incarnate is spelled Inkarnate. Okay. Like I said, it's free to make an account online. We're going to take a quick look at it. Allows you to make some really awesome stuff. So let me just pull up my sophisticated mouse surface, which is a drawing pad. All right. So it's going to be kind of hard for you to see some of the details, and I am going to go ahead and move our troll, and we can leave Gorby up there. I don't think he's making it hard to see anything. I'm going to move our troll and our pieces out of the way for now. If you're just tuning in, you can always go back after the video has been posted to check out our Gorby story at the very beginning. Okay, I am going to move him. Just make it a little bit easier. So while the details are going to be kind of hard for you to see, you will be able to see the map and its capabilities. And I hope that if you have any questions, you feel comfortable reaching out. I'm more than happy to answer any. This is a very fun program, so I'm going to start by opening up a map. In the very top left, there is something that says New Map. I'm going to click on that. It's going to give me a bunch of choices when it opens up. Now, I'll walk you through these really quickly. You can only do the ones that don't have a red banner on it. There are a lot of things that are available if you make a purchased account. We don't have to do that, though. There's lots of things to use that are totally free. So we're going to click this first one, Fantasy Regional HD Free. Okay, that's just the very first one. And it says Map Editor Resolution. When you click that, generally you want to go with medium. It's going to make your map run a little bit more quickly. And you're going to see why it could run slowly, because this has got a lot going on. Parents, you may need to help out a little bit with the initial setup part of this, but once you're in there, it's a lot like any sort of online photo editing or Scratch or any sort of program like that. So it starts you out with this big blue map. This is your ocean, and then you have this little cursor. You can see I'm moving it around. This is going to be our paintbrush for our land. So I'm going to start brushing it out. I'm going to make a little mess right here. Just making a random shape, not doing it how we did yesterday. And you can see that once I do that, it kind of finishes up the edges and makes it look nice and dark. I'm going to make an island here and a couple of islands here. And there we go. So this is going to be the base for our fantasy world. It already looks really cool because of the content. But maybe we want to change it up. Maybe we want our islands to have different climates and different sort of feelings to it, or we want to add some population. So over on the left, there are all of these tools available for us. There's a brush tool, a stamp tool. We're going to start with the brush tool. And on the right side, it's going to open up something called a texture catalog. You're going to click on that. And then obviously anything with a red star we can't use, but any of these other things we can. So we're going to make we'll make it kind of grassy. We'll make the mainland kind of grassy. So now I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to move it over what were those kind of base land. They just kind of tan, doesn't really look like anything. I'm going to start moving it over, and it's going to actually paint it for me, making it nice and green and pretty. So if any of you have made maps already, you could try transferring it in here by copying it over. It's kind of challenging. I imagine how hard it was for the people who, like, can you imagine sailing on a boat and trying to make an accurate map just by looking at the edges of this? If you try to scale your map up from hand-drawn onto this, it'll be very challenging. Scale is such a hard thing to pay attention to, an important thing to pay attention to when you are making a map. So I want to create some variety over here. So I'm going to make a couple of these islands up here. I'm going to make them snowy. So I'm going to paint these all white, give it a snowy texture, so we know that's the frozen north. And then just to continue the variety, I'm coming back over here to that texture catalog. I'm going to make some desert. So this island right here is a desert. We had a lot of deserts in the map that we made as a community. Right here. Some very cool things. You can even add stamps, which is right below the brush tool over on the left again. These stamps allow you to add things like mountains. So let's say I want to have a mountain. It actually pulls up mountains right away. I'm going to put mountains on that. And those look pretty big, right? I think they might be a little too big. So to change those, I come up to this mouse button in the very top left. Now I can click on those and I can shrink those just like an image in PowerPoint or slides or anything that allows you to edit the size of an image. So you have to be careful you're clicking on the right one. But I'm going to make these mountains a little smaller so that way they don't take up the whole island. That would be a pretty crazy island. So you can add things like that to create a kind of geographical element, but maybe you want to... And if I ever get lost, let's come back here to stamps. Stamp catalog. All sorts of different things. Maybe I want to add some towns. So I'm going to add a town here and a town here. We'll shrink those down, make them kind of regularly sized. Otherwise, this map is kind of the size of a parking lot. So I'll shrink them down. I'll put them right there on the coast and right there. And then finally, maybe I want to make a road to connect those. So there's one more tool down here that we'll take a look at. Path tool. No, never mind. We can't use that unless it's free or unless we pay for it. I could have sworn there was a road tool, but maybe I'm getting that confused. But we could always go in and we could try to draw that afterwards in our own. But as you can see, it's a really neat program. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. You can even add text. So if you want to say that this is, we'll call it Monkey Town, then you can write it out and it comes in the very cool kind of script text. So if any of you want to up your map making game or you just want to try this out for fun, I've made several maps on here just for the sake of making them. It's really cool to create these different worlds and then imagine what is in there. If you want to try to transfer your map over, maybe you can do that as well, which would be super cool. So now we are moving on to the writing segment where we are going to actually write together, and this is where I'm going to look for some community input as you can add things to our story. As I'm speaking, you can say, hey, what if this happens? And we will throw that in. So have a pencil and paper ready if you want to write along, or you can open up a word processor on your computer and you can write along with us. We're going to write for just a little bit to show you that when you write, you want to turn off the editor. This is something that I tell my writing students a lot. You want to turn off the editor when you are writing because you want to let the creative ideas really just flow out of you. You want them to come unhindered because a lot of times we have a tendency when we're writing to be like, oh no, that's a bad idea. That's not really going to work. I don't like that. And then we spend so much time editing ourselves that we actually don't write anything. So when you're doing this writing exercise and when you're writing creatively, try to just write, just create, and then later you can put on your editor hat, you can come back in, you can look at it and say, okay, let's change that, let's add this in here. And when you start to do that, you're going to be really surprised at the ideas that you come up with. Oh, it looks like we have a vote coming in. Treasure Island has been voted for my story time next time. Excellent. Excited to see that. I'll see if I can get the other ones going before we write. So when we write together, I'm going to pull up a little document here so that way you can see it as well. I've got the text very large. It's going to be kind of interesting. First time we've ever done that. Name the other one. I don't know if that's a good suggestion. I'm not sure about that one. We'll see. We've got Monkey Town. Maybe another suggestion. Okay, so using this time to gather your supplies and get ready to write with us. I'm going to check the polls once more before we get started. But we will also have to pick a place on our map. So yeah, I'm having trouble getting the polls to open up for you. So if there is anyone who, on the New Minds team, behind the scenes, technically skilled and you know how to open our polls back up. I think the only one that's open right now is our book reading. But that's okay. That's fine. So you can see I have some sample text up here testing to see if it works. We're going to pick a spot on our map, and I encourage you to do the same thing to write this story. We're going to pick a spot on our map that we made. Now, one that came up to me, stories almost always have some conflict in them because conflict is what makes it interesting. It's what engages us. So the conflict I see on this map was the road in between the Troll Town and the Magic Crab Town that wasn't able to be completed because someone suggested that the enchanted brains from the desert were causing, they were using math rays to cause headaches for the workers. So I think that is where our conflict is. So our prompt today, or kind of our goal for our writing, is we are going to try to write from the perspective of one of these road workers, or maybe someone who's been affected by this, maybe a Magic Crab shop owner who can't ship his goods to the trolls, maybe a troll who really wants to visit the Magic Crabs so he can train with the elves. Who knows? We're going to choose that as we go. So if you have any suggestions, throw them in the comments. I will use them as we write. We're going to write live, and I'm going to try to show you how we turn off the editor as we write. So we're going to start there. Trying to decide Magic Crab character or troll character. I feel like it's got to be one of those. Sorry, I dropped my mouse. Magic Crab or troll? We're going to go with troll. Okay? This character's name, I don't want to stick on this too long. So his name will be Tolpo the Troll. He lived in the troll town next to the forest. The humble troll town next to the forest. Above. Forest just north of one of the 4 lakes. Now you are going to see typos, you are going to see grammar mistakes. I'm focusing on the creative flow here. I want you to do the same. You can always go back and edit. You can always have someone take a look for you. North of one of the 4 lakes. Okay, Tolpo really wanted to visit the elves on the northern coast. But sadly, the road had yet to be completed. The troll workers were returning home with terrible headaches and mumbling things like quadratic equation and solve for x. Their families were concerned and scared. Tolpo felt like he could help. Tolpo felt like he could help. He gathered his trusty... What should be his trusty item? It looks like we might have some suggestions flying in. Stop typing, Garfield. gather his trusty butterfly net. His... what else could he have? His shoes and his cape. He set off to where the workers had been. So we're going to skip some time because we don't always want to describe everything that happens. We don't want to describe him walking along the road if nothing happens. So let's skip some time to when something exciting happens. Topo was almost at the construction site. Thank you, autocorrect. When he began to think of numbers. He never thought of numbers, so he thought, I gotta turn off the editor, thought this was strange. He looked around and spotted a floating, enchanted brain. It was coming right at him. As Topo was frozen in fear, all he could think was what is hypotenuse? And we'll end the story with Topo there. So as you could see, I even had to kind of like fight myself when I was writing. I had to I was like, oh, that could be a better word there. And I started to go back and I had to stop and stick with it. So it can be really hard to turn off the writer, but you could see that it slowed down a lot when I started to think about like, oh, what do I write next? Or like, oh, is that a good word choice? It started to slow down. And when you're first creating, you want to just try to throw as much out as you can, because when you throw out a ton of ideas, you're going to find some good ones in there. You're going to find a lot of ideas that are very silly and that you won't use, but that's totally okay, because you got to get those ideas out to get to the good ones. So I encourage you all to, when you write, try to turn off the editor. It's going to take practice, even if you've been doing it for a long time. Turn off that editor, write, and something kind of special, if you are interested, and you write something, you can take it and you can send it in to me, and during our story time, instead of reading something from C.S. Lewis or reading Treasure Island or reading anything else, I will actually read user submitted stories. So something that you submit, I will read it, I'll put on my full voice acting, I'll get into the characters, I'll do the epic narrator voice, I'll do everything that I can to bring your story to life. Wow, I got a lot of angry faces. Oh my goodness. Right now I'm looking at my screen and it was like, laugh, and then it was just like 20 angry faces. I'm so sorry for whatever I did to anger whoever you were. So that'll end our writing segment, but definitely send something in. I want to see what you write, and I would love to read some student work. I think that would be super fun to get that. So next we are going to transition over to our story time. So if you are here for story time, we are doing Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We will be moving on to another story next week, and I will be opening up a story time during one of the other New Minds adult and parent programs. Excuse me, I dropped part of my supplies, just making sure that I'm still all good. And it looks like, yes, I am good. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to our trusty fireplace. So go ahead and get settled in, get your blankets, get your hot chocolate, your snacks. We've got some time to read. I will not run right up into the minute. I know someone even tried to warn me last time. And they were like, 3 minutes left. And I was like, I see it, don't worry. And then I still ran up right up into the minute. But that's okay, we won't do that this time. So grab everything you need. To read, and then I'm going to write up what we're reading so that way people coming in know. Because I got that yesterday. Someone's like, I came in and I was interested in what you were reading, but I had no idea what it was. So writing this out for us. Okay. Thank you for being patient with me as I didn't say anything and just focused on writing there. I'm going to put that up where someone can see it. Can we see it over here? It does cover up our fireplace. That's all right. That's all right. So I am actually going to go back and I'm going to read the last page of the last chapter because I did get in a rush. I tried to paraphrase and move it along quickly so that way we could still get to the end of the chapter. But man, I skipped over some beautiful wording. I skipped over some awesome stuff. So I want to go back and I want to read that. It's just a page. It is nothing too long. So remember last time when we read, Lucy had tea with Mr. Tumnus, and Mr. Tumnus revealed partway through having tea that he had actually planned on taking Lucy to the White Witch, who is this apparently pretty evil person who has taken over Narnia, this fantasy world she stepped into, where they are in a perpetual winter. It is winter all the time, and it is never Christmas. Which, as Mr. Tumnus said, is terrible, right? So Lucy convinced Mr. Tumnus to let her go home, and he said, yes, I'll take you home. We're going to pick up right there. I'm very sorry, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, but please let me go home. Of course I will, said the fawn. Of course I've got to. I see that now. I hadn't known what humans were like before I met you. Of course I can't give you up to the witch. Not now that I know you. But we must be off at once. I'll see you back to the lamp-post. I suppose you can find your own way back to spare and wardrobe? I'm sure I can. We must go as quietly as we can, said Mr. Tumnus. The whole wood is full of her spies. Even some of the trees are on her side. They both got up and left the tea things on the table, and Mr. Tumnus once more put up his umbrella and gave Lucy his arm, and they went out into the snow. The journey back was not at all like the journey to the fawn's cave. They stole along as quickly as they could without speaking a word, and Mr. Tumnus kept to the darkest places. Lucy was relieved when they reached the lamp-post again. Do you know your way from here, daughter of Eve? Said Mr. Tumnus. Lucy looked very hard between the trees and could just see in the distance a patch of light that looked like daylight. Yes, she said, I can see the wardrobe door. Then be off home as quick as you can, said the fawn, and can you ever forgive me for what I meant to do? Why, of course I can, said Lucy, shaking him heartily by the hand, and I do hope that you won't get into dreadful trouble on my account. Farewell, daughter of Eve, said he, and perhaps I may keep the handkerchief? Rather, said Lucy, and then ran towards the far-off patch of daylight as quickly as her legs would carry her. And presently, instead of rough branches brushing past her, she felt coats, and instead of crunching snow under her feet, She felt wooden boards, and all at once she found herself jumping out of the wardrobe into the same empty room from which the whole adventure had started. She shut the wardrobe door tightly behind her and looked around, panting for breath. It was still raining, and she could hear the voices of the others in the passage. "I'm here," she shouted. "I'm here. I've come back. I'm all right." And that's where we left off yesterday. We'll now continue with Chapter 3, which is Edmund and the Wardrobe. For those of you just tuning in, Edmund is one of Lucy's siblings. He is the second youngest brother. Chapter 3, Edmund and the Wardrobe. Lucy ran out of the empty room into the passage and found the other three. "It's all right," she repeated. "I've come back." "What on earth are you talking about, Lucy?" asked Susan. "Why," said Lucy in amazement, "haven't you all been wondering where I was?" "So you've been hiding, have you?" said Peter. "Poor old Lou, hiding and nobody noticed. You'll have to hide longer than that if you want people to start looking for you." "But I've been away for hours and hours," said Lucy. The others all stared at one another. "Batty," said Edmund, tapping his head. "Quite batty." "What do you mean, Lou?" "What I said," answered Lucy. "It was just after breakfast when I went into the wardrobe, and I've been away for hours and hours, and had tea, and all sorts of things have happened." "Don't be silly, Lucy," said Susan. "We've only just come out of that room a moment ago, and you were there then." "She's not being silly at all," said Peter. "She's just making up a story for fun, aren't you, Lou? And why wouldn't she?" "No, Peter, I'm not," she said. It's a magic wardrobe. There's a wood inside it, and it's snowing, and there's a faun and a witch, and it's called Narnia. Come and see." The others did not know what to think, but Lucy was so excited they all went back with her into the room. She rushed ahead of them, flung open the door of the wardrobe, and cried, "Now, go in and see for yourselves." "Why, you goose," said Susan, putting her head inside and pulling the fur coats apart. "It's just an ordinary wardrobe. Look, there's the back of it." Then everyone looked in and pulled the coats apart, and they all saw, Lucy herself saw, a perfectly ordinary wardrobe. There was no wood and no snow, only the back of the wardrobe, with hooks on it. Peter went in and rapped his knuckles on it to make sure that it was solid. "A jolly good hoax, Lou," he said as he came out again. "You have really taken us in, I must admit. We half believed you." "But it wasn't a hoax at all," said Lucy. "Really and truly, it was all different a moment ago. Honestly, it was. I promise." "Come, Lou," said Peter. "That's going a bit far. You've had your joke. Hadn't you better drop it now?" Lucy grew very red in the face and tried to say something, though she hardly knew what she was trying to say, and burst into tears. For the next few days she was very miserable. She could have made it up with the others quite easily at any moment if she could have brought herself to say that the whole thing was only a story made up for fun. But Lucy was a very truthful girl, and she knew that she was really in the right, and she could not bring herself to say this. The others, who thought she was telling a lie, and a silly lie too, made her very unhappy. The two elder ones did this without meaning to do it, but Edmund could be spiteful, and on this occasion he was spiteful. He sneered and jeered at Lucy and kept on asking her if she'd found any other new countries and other cupboards all over the house. What made it worse was that these days ought to have been delightful. The weather was fine, and they were out of doors from morning to night, bathing, fishing, climbing trees, and lying in the heather, but Lucy could not properly enjoy any of it. And so things went on until the next wet day. That day, when it came to the afternoon and there was still no sign of a break in the weather, they decided to play hide and seek. Susan was it, and as soon as the others scattered to hide, Lucy went to the room where the wardrobe was. She did not mean to hide in the wardrobe, because she knew that would only set the others to talking again about the whole wretched business, but she did want to have one more look inside of it, for by this time she was beginning to wonder herself whether Narnia and the faun had not been a dream. The house was so large and complicated and full of hiding places that she thought she would have time to have one look into the wardrobe and then hide somewhere else. But as soon as she reached it, she heard steps in the passage outside, and then there was nothing for it but to jump into the wardrobe and hold the door closed behind her. She did not shut it properly because she knew that it was very silly to shut oneself into a wardrobe, even if it is not a magic one. Now the steps she had heard were those of Edmund, and he came into the room just in time to see Lucy vanishing into the wardrobe. He at once decided to get into it himself, Not because he thought it a particularly good place to hide, but because he wanted to go on teasing her about her imaginary country. He opened the door. There were coats hanging up as usual, and a smell of mothballs, and darkness and silence, and no sign of Lucy. "She thinks I'm Susan come to catch her," said Edmund to himself, "and so she's keeping very quiet at the back." He jumped in and shut the door, forgetting what a very foolish thing this is to do. Then he began feeling about for Lucy in the dark. He had expected to find her in a few seconds, and he was very surprised when he did not. He decided to open the door again and let in some light, but he could not find the door either. He didn't like this at all, and began groping wildly in every direction. He even shouted out, "Lucy! Lou! Where are you? I know you're here." There was no answer, and Edmund noticed that his own voice had a curious sound. Not the sound you expect in a cupboard, but a kind of open-air sound. He also noticed that he was unexpectedly cold, and then he saw a light. "Thank goodness," said Edmund. The door must have swung open of its own accord. He forgot all about Lucy and went towards the light, which he thought was the open door of the wardrobe. But instead of finding himself stepping out into the spare room, he found himself stepping out from the shadow of some thick, dark fir trees into an open place in the middle of a wood. There was crisp, dry snow under his feet, and more snow lying on the branches of the trees. Overhead there was a pale blue sky, the sort of sky one sees on a fine winter day in the morning. Straight ahead of him he saw between the tree trunks the sun, just rising, very red and clear. Everything was perfectly still, as if he were the only living creature in that country. There was not even a robin or a squirrel among the trees, and the wood stretched as far as he could see in every direction. He shivered. He now remembered that he had been looking for Lucy, and also how unpleasant he had been to her about her imaginary country, which now turned out not to have been imaginary at all. He thought that she must be somewhere quite close, and so he shouted, "Lucy! Lucy, I'm here too! Edmund!" There was no answer. "She's angry about all the things I've been saying lately," thought Edmund, and though he did not like to admit that he had been wrong, he also did not much like being alone in this strange, cold, quiet place. So he shouted again, "I say, Lou, I'm sorry. I didn't believe you. I see now you were right all along. Do come out. Make peace." Still there was no answer. "Just like a girl," said Edmund to himself, "sulking somewhere and won't accept an apology." He looked around him again and decided he did not much like this place, and had almost made up his mind to go home when he heard very far off in the wood, a sound of bells. He listened, and the sound came nearer, and at last there swept into sight a sledge drawn by 2 reindeer. The reindeer were about the size of Shetland ponies, and their hair was so white that even the snow hardly looked white compared with them. Their branching horns were gilded and shone like something on fire when the sunrise caught them. Their harness was of scarlet leather and covered with bells. On the sledge, driving the reindeer, sat a fat dwarf, who would have been about 3 feet high if he had been standing. He was dressed in a polar bear's fur, and on his head he wore a red hood with a long gold tassel hanging down from its point. His huge beard covered his knees and served him instead of a rug. But behind him, on a much higher seat, in the middle of the sledge, sat a very different person, a great lady, taller than any woman that Edmund had ever seen. She was also covered in white fur up to her throat, and held a long, straight golden wand in her right hand, and wore a golden crown on her head. Her face was white, not merely pale, but white like snow or paper or icing sugar, except for her very red mouth. It was a beautiful face in other respects, but proud and cold and stern. The sledge was a fine sight as it came sweeping towards Edmund, with the bells jingling and the dwarf cracking his whip, and the snow flying up on each side of it. "Stop!" said the lady, and the dwarf pulled the reindeer up so sharply that they almost sat down. Then they recovered themselves and stood champing their bits and blowing. In the frosty air, the breath coming out of their nostrils looked like smoke. And we will end there for today. I want to make sure to give a little bit of wiggle room for everything. So thank you all for tuning in today. Those of you who were here in the chat, I'll look through and see if there were any comments that I missed. I appreciate you being here. Sorry, I just saw someone tune in right now, right here at the end. We are wrapping up. We just finished our reading for today. Make sure once the video has gone live to go on and check out our polls that we made. We did make a couple of polls for you. What story am I going to read next? There may be a bonus story time coming here in the future during one of the parent-related hours. Let me know. The two suggestions I have are Treasure Island or Robinson Crusoe, two of my favorites from when I was younger. So if you want to suggest something else, you could do that. But those are the two suggestions we have right now. Mr. Walter is up next with Around the World with Mr. Walter. I've really enjoyed his show the past couple of days, so it's going to be a fun one to watch. Make sure you tune into that. We'll get to listen to some new and interesting music. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow. We are going to have a different activity tomorrow. We will be continuing with our good friend Gorby. We will see how he gets out. Remember to vote in the poll. What he's going to do. Is he going to investigate some treasure, or is he going to escape? We'll help Gorby out. But we're going to make some crafts tomorrow. I'll be posting some materials for you. We're going to make some sculptures to add to our games. Remember that you can play games at home with your friends, with your family and with your siblings who are there with you. Make something up. You don't have to have a D20. You don't have to have Dungeons and Dragons. You don't have to have all of this stuff. Make up a story and decide what happens next. Have fun with that. Share your stories if you have any. I'd love to read one at story time. Other than that, we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, and have a great day.